Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have with me Sonia Amin. Hey, Sonia.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you because you've done quite a few different pivots throughout your life and have some exciting things you're doing now. So, just so people can get to know you, I'm going to read your short bio. So, Dr. Sonia Amin is a wife, mother, pharmacist, and multi award winning children's book author. She is passionate about encouraging others to live healthy and values the importance of nurturing physical, spiritual, and mental health. Her social emotional learning series includes books that empower kids to make wise choices in their thoughts, words, and actions. So, I would love to hear your story, Sonia.
Oh, well, I know that kind of gives you a little bit about myself, but I can't really start without really giving credit to my parents. And so I really want to just start with, you know what, I'm excited to just share who I am is because of my parents, and I so want to just honor them. And they came to America um, as immigrants. And so I am a first generation American born citizen. And so they were born in India from a state called Kerala, which is the very tip, the southern tip of India. So very tropical, beautiful state, similar to Florida, where I live now. And actually, my father is a missionary evangelist, and I just spoke with them about less than an hour ago. They just got there again. So they live between Florida, and they do missions there in India. So I just spoke with my mom, and they reached safely. But even at his age, my father is 83 years old, and he's still passionate about spreading the gospel and sharing the really the good news with everyone he interacts with. And so uh, and really my parents have instilled in us not just a love for God, but a love for people. And so I think that's where everything we do, I feel like, is an outpouring of that. It's really, we love getting to help people in different ways. And so whether that's missions in India, which a lot of it is what they do, and even I have my sister, she and my brother-in-law, they also have a ministry now, and they are supporting pastors in a state nearby called Tamil Nadu. And even here in the US, my husband and I, and which we are helping to foster in our own kids, is really to serve others, because we can do that with even with very little, right? Because when I think of growing up here in America, my parents came with nothing. My dad was a pastor, and so he really came he with nothing. My parents were making minimum wage all those years growing up, um, barely making ends meet. But we never lacked anything. I never knew that we were really struggling. We didn't have, lots of toys or things, but I felt like, the love in the home was definitely there. And um, between everything that my parents have gone through. So I have two siblings, one, my older sister, and then I had a younger sister. She was born very sick, even when she was born. And so she passed away when she was almost 8. And I was 9 at the age. She was my best friend. I feel like going through all of those different things, seeing my parents' faith was really what helped me, not just during that time, because even as a kid, that was really confusing. But as I look back and as I um, grew older, even through high school and college, just really, again, falling back on my faith and having that support system, even when, things were rough, whether it was financially or, emotionally, all those different things. And so that's where And I can talk about that more later, but that's also part of the inspiration for the children's books, is really because I think so often um, we all deal with difficult things in life, no matter what age we are, right? It's negative thoughts or even just difficult thoughts and situations happen. And if we can help equip our children while they're young to kind of navigate that, and give them tools to help them navigate those thoughts and life in general, and then we can help set them up for success. And we can do that very easily with beautiful picture books that are like eye-catching because they love beautiful pictures. And so a lot of times they don't even realize they're learning to um, you know develop those skills that are necessary as we grow up. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, a lot of times in families, the parents want their kids to, follow in their footsteps. And, um, but you chose a different path as the first, American born in your family. How did you choose the profession that you went into?
So funny enough, I would say, although, um, on paper by degree, I would say, yes, I chose a different path. However, I believe my heart, um, is very much the same as my parents, in that, you know what, I pray that I am a light. I pray that I am sharing the love of Jesus, no matter who it is with, whether it's my patients at the pharmacy, or whether I'm doing author visits with kids, whether it's at a Christian school or a public school, which, I feel like in all those different situations, I believe I am spreading love, but really, truly, as a Christian, it's really the love of Jesus that I'm spreading. And so, but funny enough, when you ask about how I became a pharmacist, it definitely was not by plan. I remember in high school um, deciding, you know what, I'm going to volunteer in the pharmacy at the hospital, because I was a candy striper back in the day. We used to be candy stripers. I don't know, they don't call it that now, but and I remember thinking, you know what, I'm going to do a 4-hour shift in the pharmacy just to see how it's like, and see if that's something I want to pursue. Oh, it was just the most boring shift. I could not get through that 4-hour shift. I was like, how did this? Because a lot of times, especially back then, and they're building hospitals differently now, but back then, the pharmacy was always in the basement. And so no windows. Uh, it's in the basement, cold, no, not much interaction. Back then, you didn't have really as much of that clinical aspect of, now pharmacists actually go to the floors and actually get to talk to patients, help with rounds, and really have an impact on the therapy that patients have, no matter if it's the cardiac floor or the, all different things. And so back then it was not like that. It was very much, it's you, maybe a tech, you're making IV bags. It was cold, nobody talked. It was, yeah, brutal. And I was like, there's no way, I'm never going to be a pharmacist. And I said that. And then even I went to college as a freshman. My roommate, she was planning to be a pharmacist. And I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going to be a pharmacist. I would never do that. It's so boring. I can't believe. And so at the time, she was pre-pharmacy and I was getting my bachelor's in food science and human nutrition. And I was close to my senior year in college. One of my professors was doing research with actually one of the professors in the pharmacy school, and this is at the University of Florida. Go Gators! And so I was just looking at the research they're doing, and at the time I was and I still am interested in nutraceuticals, which are foods with health benefits. And so they were doing some research around grapefruits, and then that just led me to start doing more research into what else do pharmacists do? What else is there if you become a pharmacist? And that's where I actually did some more research. There's a slew of things, and I knew I wanted to impact people and patients. I do enjoy that one-on-one interaction. So I decided to pursue uh, pharmacy school, not with the intention of being a retail pharmacist, but rather I learned about ambulatory care or primary care within pharmacy. And so even after and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to meet with patients and see them how they're doing really long term, not just in that acute setting, whether it was in the hospital. And so I decided to do a residency after I completed my doctorate in pharmacy, and I did a residency in ambulatory care or primary care. And also, I knew I had a passion for teaching. So then I also had the privilege of completing my teaching certificate, and that's what led me to teaching pharmacy school after that, as well as becoming more of an AM care pharmacist and being able to see patients in the clinic as well. So really definitely did not plan to be a pharmacist, and but God knows. And then even more so, he knew what other things I would do, not planned as well. So
So I'm just curious, with your background in food and nutraceuticals and how does that show up in your family? Like, how does that show up in your choices when you're creating meals and nutrition for your family?
So I'm going to be honest, we are not the most, I'm not super strict. I'm more realistic, especially with the busyness of life. I definitely, my kids are very aware, even from a young age. I've taught them how to read a nutrition label. They know what to look for. They know to look at ingredients. If they can't, they know if they can't pronounce it, then it's probably not good for them. These are things even my son just shared recently. He was like telling his class he got to, right now he's doing like a 2-week elective, and it's culinary arts, and they're kind of reviewing, basically learning or reviewing what he's been taught at home. And he's like, Mommy, I shared with the class, how to, look at the ingredients and this and that. And so I say that, but at the same time, we're very much, you know what, if it's you know, the weekend or a birthday or, whatever it is, we did definitely, we have treats. And a lot of times, it's not easy because their kids they're growing up and they're around lots of treats and choices, but a lot of times, they do remember, like, oh no, mommy's gonna say no, that has food coloring, or and we try to avoid it, but at the same time, we're not, like I said, thankfully they're not severely allergic to things where we have to there were seasons in our life where I know when my youngest was very young, like I had to be gluten free. I had to I couldn't have any dairy. I couldn't, certain. So there are times when we know what we need to do. Thankfully, right now we try to eat clean and healthy. Right? I tell them, you know what, you have to have some type of fruit and veggie for lunch and dinner at minimum. Breakfast, you have to have at least a fruit with your egg and sausage or whatever it is. And so things like that. But like I said, I am not super strict, and I would say, I know others that eat probably even more cleaner than I do, but at the same time, I think um I value also, I'm very much like, what's the easy meal, what's quick, what works with our busy life, that kind of stuff as well. So
Mhm. Well, that makes sense, and there are a lot of choices. I mean, if you read everything about every food, you wouldn't be able to eat anything or drink water because there's always somebody saying something about something.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
example is coffee. Some people say coffee is like the best thing, has all these health benefits, and some people say you shouldn't have caffeine. It's like, what do you eat?
yes, that is so true. Yes, and even with water, you're right, because like one water, based on the pH of one versus the other, so all those different things.
Exactly. So, just a basic question. I know you were, working in patient care more, but um, these days, sometimes, I'm an optometrist, so people come in and they have all these lists of medicines. So when people go to their pharmacist and what is what should they be doing as far as what should they be asking their pharmacist? What to make it so that they can feel their best?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So this is what I actually do for the company that I work for. I actually do telehealth primarily. I do it also for patients who are local. I do it for the whole state of Florida, but through telehealth. But the local patients, they can come in and see me one-on-one, and I go through all of their medications. And so this is something, yes, it's time consuming, and I specialize in this. But even if they have a pharmacist that has time, especially if it's a community pharmacist, or hopefully it's a downtime, because honestly, in the retail setting, it's hard. The pharmacist, they're overworked, overwhelmed. It's not easy. But if they have a pharmacist that they're able to kind of at least look at their medications to see, one, is there like duplicate therapy? Are there any drug interactions? And then also to see, okay, if they're experiencing any symptoms, sometimes these symptoms are really just side effects of a medication, and then they're medicated for that side effect, which they're thinking is just a symptom of maybe a disease state, but rather it's possibly a side effect of a medication. And so we're just medicating and medicating and medicating over, it's really just over prescribing. And so now within the medical arena, we are trying to de-prescribe. I don't know if you've heard of that term, but trying to de-prescribe for patients, because we're seeing that they're on so many medications, and maybe for many, many years. And, they're just so used to popping those pills and thinking, oh, this is just how it is. And it's because, many years ago I had this, well, whether it was heartburn, or acid reflux that they had many years ago for a season, but they don't need to be on that, omeprazole for 15 years, right? And so now they're having nutrition, like nutrient depletion, their bones are being affected, all those things. And so now we're trying to actually de-prescribe, as well as also what other, um, therapies that involve like diet, exercise. How can we help them with without medications, and then going from there, if it's necessary.
I mean, thank you. So you've done some different things in your life, from pharmacy to teaching and now writing books. What is your advice to people? Sometimes it's really hard for people to make that jump, especially if they've been doing something a long time and they really want to do something new, but there's trepidation. And sometimes they never make the jump and actually do it. So any advice for people?
Oh, yes, very much so, because I've been there. I know very much that feeling, because honestly, as a kid, I actually always struggled with writing. Writing was something that um, didn't come naturally to me. And so, I mean, I remember sitting in middle school with paper and pen in hand, and the teacher saying, okay, giving the assignment of a topic, and you're supposed to write, whether it's a story or an essay or whatever it is, within that class period. And you have an hour, and like 45 minutes in, my paper's blank, and I'm just like, Lord, give me, what do I write? How do I, and so every time God would end up giving me something, at least enough to turn in my assignments, and things like that. But I remember even like trying to write really big, pretending like I had bubble handwriting, like my friend, which I didn't. I had normal handwriting, but like just trying to fill up that paper, because I was like, I don't have a lot to write. But even with that, and as I grew older, it's not that it became easy, but God did place in my heart, after I had kids, I would read to them since they were babies, and just seeing how their faces lit up and just how happy they were. And I'm like, oh man, I want to write like this. I want to write and, I want to bring that joy. And so I remember just writing initially just for them, thinking, okay, these are going to be stories for them and my kids, and we'll just keep it in the family. And this is just going to be so special. And then God placed it on my heart to actually, share it with the world. And that's when I decided to pursue self-publishing. But with that, I was scared at, I was like, what if, I don't know what I'm doing, how is this gonna work? But God, one, gave me the perseverance. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna take this step. I joined like a writing group. God really, put really angels in my path between the mastermind group that I was in, and then meeting others to help, lead the way, but also taking lots of classes, YouTube videos, right? All these different things to learn the process. But I was like, you know what, this is what God's telling me to do. I feel like, you know what, I'm going to be obedient, even if I feel one like scared. I don't know what I'm doing. All those things I've struggled in this area, but I knew God would carry me through because it was something I knew it wasn't my idea, it was His. And so I was like, okay, I need to do it because he's this is what I'm supposed to. This is what I'm called to do in this season. And it was great being able to do my first book, especially when my kids were so young, because they got to be a part of the whole process. They got to help with thinking of the ideas and the examples, and it was just a wonderful experience being able to do that with the kids. And then with my second book, there's like a brownie recipe that kids can download. And even with that, like all, it wasn't last summer, the summer before, I believe, we like got to just work on this brownie recipe. We made lots of brownies, all different ways and versions, which they love. And even now when they talk about the book, they tell everybody, oh, the brownie recipe's so good. Like we perfected it. It's an easy one bowl, recipe. And so, yeah, all that to say that it was all because even though, I didn't feel qualified, but God placed it in my heart, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be obedient to that.
So, wow. So just going back to, your childhood when you lost your sister and, your family, you said your parents, their faith was something that just shone through and it seems to me that there are people who are always helping people. So how does helping people, even when you're struggling yourself, how does that help you?
I believe um, when when our focus is not so much on ourselves and our struggle, and seeing, what, there are people around us who are going through so much, a lot of times, so much worse than what we are dealing with, even in the moment. Being able to put that focus on others and serving others, and that is what one helps me get through those situations, right? Like even now, as I think of just everyone that's just suffering from the hurricane, and just all the lives that are lost, and all, it's not just here in the US, but it's really around the world. I think we don't always see what's going on, but there's typhoons and floodings in other parts of the world that don't get as much news time. But I feel like there's always something that we can do, and it doesn't have to be something big, or sending, and if we can send money or resources or things like that, that's great. But even in our own really circle, our sphere of influence. So I remember even as a young mom, I struggled. I remember just, it was a lot, newly married and having kids, and it was a lot. But you know what, in my heart, I knew I wanted to serve in some way. And so my commitment was, you know what, I'm gonna supply a meal to another family while I'm, preparing my meal for my family. I'm gonna plan a meal for another family at least 1 to 2 times a month. And that was just something I committed to for several years. And even now, we still want to do that. But that was something I was like, even in my, I felt like I couldn't do much at that time. But that was something that, I was like, we budgeted in our, meal plan and all those different things. Like, but that's something where, even what's something small? Is it your time? Is it your resources? Is it whatever it is? I think we all can do that, and it helps not just those around us, but it really does help to boost our own, it encourages us as well. So.
Yeah, and when you talk about meals, I was just wondering, your parents were from India, but you grew up here. So, did they pass on that Indian cooking to you?
So I would say I don't cook as good as my mom, but yes, we do cook Indian, and thankfully my husband is an amazing cook. So he cooks delicious Indian food as well, and so very spicy, very sweet. I have to have him tone it down for me and the kids because he cooks it like really spicy, but um, but yes, we do. My mom obviously does a lot of the specialty types of food. I do kind of your chicken curry, rice, the vegetable sides. But yes, and it's not all the time. I feel like we definitely rotate it. It's not like versus growing up every single meal, every single day of my whole entire childhood was Indian food. It was rice and curry every single. We never ate out like ever like so. Like, but but yes, so that's in a way yes. But we also do a lot of tacos and pasta and all those other things as well.
I was gonna say. So, as an adult, I think many of us eat out a lot more than we did growing up. Because I know, well, we would go out on Sundays, and that was like really, really special. We go to the steakhouse on Sundays, but the rest of the week, we ate at home. So, as you started going out and stuff, what is some of your favorite foods or favorite restaurants? What did you find that you really liked since you had had the Indian food for so long? What new they weren't really new, but what
But
American
different.
food did you find like, "Oh, I really like this?"
So surprisingly enough, even now, so my husband is very similar in that we do not eat out a lot, even now. Like we pretty much have like I don't want to put a percentage on it, about like I don't know, maybe 90% of our meals at home we eat out. We'll do a meal on the weekend, or we're very intentional. Like okay, where would the kids like to, or maybe me and my older son. Okay, let's do a mommy and son date, and we'll go out, or for special occasions, our anniversaries and things like that. We'll go out. But for the most part, our family is still pretty, we eat at home for most meals. But I do enjoy eating out, and I've told my husband this, so he knows it's really special when we eat because I love the Asian food. So like we have a place here called Hawkers in the Orlando area, Mamak, another like that Asian street food type. I, yeah, those are some of my favorites. And even I say this sometimes, my kind of meal that I'm like, oh, I come home from work and I'm just like, I just want a nice hearty meal, like a feel good. It's actually a Trader Joe's Asian meal. It's like a beef bulgogi fried rice, which I love. And so that's I definitely enjoy Asian. Obviously, I love Indian food, but I would say I really enjoy we all of us enjoy eating like Asian, whether it's pho. I think for Mother's Day we did like a Vietnamese place. We did pho, and so yeah, those are.
Sounds wonderful. It's in the morning, but it's making me hungry for lunch already.
I know I'm thinking now you got me thinking. I'm like, should I pull out my bulgogi for dinner today? Like
Yeah, sounds great. So, when you go and you're talking about your book, do you ever take your kids with you?
So a lot of times on the weekends, if I do weekend events, definitely they come. Obviously, on the weekdays, I'll do author visits at schools and things, and they're at school, so well, I don't get to bring them. But on the weekends, yes, they are the best. They are so good about just getting kids to come to our booth. So one of my books, I can just mention, it's called Backs in His Bubbles, all about a kid and his thoughts. So this is the first one. And so a lot of times my boys will sit and just blow bubbles, and that'll just bring all the kids. That just brings all the kids to the table, which is great. And so, which is one of the things in the book, like I do mention in the back, I include like discussion questions, and I also say, hey, why don't you go outside and blow some bubbles and think of all the positive thoughts those bubbles can be. And so that's where the kids are really good about they love it. They're so supportive. Same, my husband and kids are extremely supportive, because some of those days are they're long days, and then sometimes if I have to travel, if I'm out of town for book things, it's hard because I don't see them now as much during the week because I'm working outside the home, and then if I'm gone for the weekend as well, that's hard, but they do understand, and I try to schedule where I don't do so many. I really do limit, and I decide, okay, I'm committing to only these certain weekends, especially if I'm missing football games and things like that for the boys. I really try to balance that. And also it's a lot on my husband too, because he's really been doing so much lately as well.
So, how many kids do you have? And
So I have two boys. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. And they're so sweet. They're really, I'm so grateful to be their mom. I've always wanted to be a mother. Even when I was young, I knew that was one thing. I think some girls think about, their wedding day, and they think about, how their wedding dress and all. I never really thought about any of that. I knew I just wanted to be a mom, and I would think about my kids and just being a mother. And so really God has blessed me with two wonderful boys, and so I'm blessed, and an awesome husband as well too.
so, tell
Which
me
we
about your book, the one you just held up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, this is Backs in His Bubbles, all about a kid and his thoughts. And in this book, it's inspired by scripture, Philippians 4:8, which talks about, think on things that are true, lovely, pure, admirable, right? All those things, excellent, praiseworthy. And although the book is not, it's not like it's preaching a verse. I feel like it's something that whether you're Christian or not, this is something that anybody can benefit from. And it actually uses cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, in that it helps kids to think of their thoughts as bubbles, and really decide which thought bubbles to keep and which thought bubbles to let go. And so in the story, the little boy, his name is Bax, he ends up learning to filter his thoughts through three questions. And you can see it, and he thinks, okay, is this thought true? Because so often we believe lies about ourselves or lies about others, right? Whether it's a kid thinking, I have no friends, or even as an adult, right? Like, oh, I'm not a good mom. I totally, I messed up because, I'm just not a good mom, right? These are sometimes lies that we believe. And so we need to stop and think, is this thought true? And then the second filter is this thought kind? And that one is a lot easier to say than like, you know, pure, admirable, praiseworthy. I kind of contain that one in, is this thought kind? And I say, you know what, if we have an unkind thought, then we might say unkind things, right? If we have an unkind thought, then we may do unkind things. And so if we can stop and think, is this thought kind, then that we can stop to think and decide what we're going to say. And then finally, is this thought excellent? Because if it's an excellent thought, then those are the thoughts we should speak and act on. Because just because something's true doesn't mean we need to say it, right? Like I think a lot of times, even on social media, as adults, we're like seeing these posts and we're like, oh, I want to respond to that in this way. And if we just stop and think, okay, that what I'm thinking, might be true, but is it kind and is it excellent? Do I need to respond in that manner? Whether it's, like I said, on social media or relationally within our families, friends, right? All those different things that can really make a difference. And so my hope is that this book really makes it easy for kids and adults to stop and think and before they speak, because really not only whether it's that negative self-talk, right, and how we speak to ourselves, but also how we speak to others as well. So
All right, beautiful. So if people wanted to connect with you or find your books, where do they find you?
well, they can go to my website, soniaamin.com. They can also find the books on Amazon, including my second book. This is When Love Flows, The Beauty of Encouraging Others. And this features a female character. Her name's Nora. And really, with that one, kids learn to use their words, their actions, and even written notes to encourage those around them. And so, yeah, you can get signed copies on my website or on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. Yes, so it's available everywhere.
All right, thank you. So now I have a personal question for you. What
Mhm.
gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
I think right now I am really happy having the balance of getting to be a pharmacist and helping my patients, but also having the flexibility in that I'm still available for my kids. There were many years where I was a stay-at-home mom, which I loved. I really, but I also missed kind of being out in pharmacy. And then I ended up being able to work from home as a pharmacist, but I really do enjoy the balance and still being able to be there for my kids, because really that's the most. I love, 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 whether it's helping them with their math or reading a book to them, or whatever it is, help guiding them. They have piano practice, and my little one, he'll be like, "Mommy, help me with this," and I mean, not that I'm a pianist, but I know basics that I can sit next to him and help him with his piano practice, and I get to do that. And I'm grateful that really I love it.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for being on the podcast and sharing your life and your books.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I have one last question before we finish. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
I would say for me, it's my faith. Without my faith in God and in Jesus Christ, I wouldn't be able to really do any day, any moment. And so just I would encourage those, if you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, if you're open to it, to just to stop and ask the Lord, hey, can you, and he'll reveal himself to you. Stop and pray. He will speak to you. I don't think anybody is incapable of hearing God's voice. I think we just need to stop and allow him to.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sonia.
Oh, thank you so much again. I appreciate it. You all have a great rest of your day.
We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, take care. Bye bye.